Welcome back to the podcast. So this is going to be our fifth and final installment of the solution series, where we're going to basically talk about how to get over the most common fears and obstacles and just pushback points that most producers face when they get into sync licensing. We've talked so much about the fear of success, the fear of failure, not having enough time to produce. There's a lot of stuff that we can really dive into with these topics. So this is basically the last of the 5 that we're going to do in terms of just Trevor, Mike, and myself kind of giving you our story, where we came from in this industry, how we dealt with it, and what we recommend in terms of moving past it. And this week's topic is all about the fear, and it's pretty much one of the biggest ones, and it definitely was something that I personally struggled with, was this fear of, what if I spend years in the sync licensing business and don't get to full-time income, don't even get to part-time income, and then literally have nothing to show for it at the end. So that really, it's a big one. I mean, that's a really, really big issue to have to go through and to get through. And it's something that I want to basically talk about my personal experience. And I want to definitely have Mike and Trevor, obviously have you guys talk about your experiences as well. So we have to obviously just be honest with this, that this is a really tough industry to succeed in. This is not easy. This is not something that we can all just hop in, jump in a couple of weeks. We've got our royalties coming in, and we already have a career going. That's not how it works, and that's why probably most of you guys listening to this and watching this do not know many people who do this full time. If it were that easy, it would not be really a thing anymore, because it would be so oversaturated that it wouldn't even matter anymore. So it is difficult. It takes time, it takes patience, and all that stuff. But I want to basically tell you about my struggle that I went through when I first got started in the business. And believe it or not, in the very beginning, the first 2 years, I didn't struggle so much with this fear. It was really more of just, I had this I got to do this. I don't want to go get a day job again. I just have to make this work. So the first couple of years, I wasn't so worried about, well, what if I waste my time in this industry? That really didn't hit me until about 1.5 years, 2 years in, when I got my first royalty check. That's when that fear actually hit me, because the royalty checks I got in the beginning were pretty small. And the first one I've talked to you guys many times before was 14 cents. It was really, really small. And even though I was excited to earn something, it was like, that's not a career, that's not anything really. But it's a small little start to, I guess, something that I was hoping that would come in the future. But, as those royalty checks grew, they got bigger and bigger. But, for a while, they weren't getting any more than maybe $500. And that's not even enough to really pay my rent, not really enough to live off of. So when those first couple of royalties started piling in, this fear started to really creep in on me, which was that you just spent 2 years in this business cranking out, working and not expecting a paycheck and just doing all the things you're supposed to do. And what if, $500 per royalty is all you're ever going to make in this industry? Are you really going to double down and do another 2 years and another 2 years and another 2 years? What if you see some progress here, but what if the progress has a cap and it has a roof and a ceiling, and you're never going to get past that because maybe your tracks just aren't as good as you think they are. Maybe one of the biggest fears, and I know I heard this directly from one Sync Academy member, how do you really know if your library is really pushing your music as opposed to your tracks maybe just being shelved, right? Meaning that they're just not really being considered for anything. They're on the website, they're registered with BMI or ASCAP, but no clients are really considering them for any of their projects. So this worry, this fear of I've got 200 tracks in a couple of libraries, but I don't even know if anybody's looking at them. They might just be collecting dust in some digital shelf somewhere, right? So these are really, really big obstacles and issues to go through. So, that was the big fear that I dealt with. And then, of course, alongside that fear is this secondary one, which is, what else am I going to do after 3 or 4 years of this? This is all I've been doing, and this is all I've devoted my life to. So what the hell am I going to do if this doesn't work out, right? It's this fear of I've devoted so much time, and to just jump out of this and switch gears and do something else, that scared me even more, because it's now I'm behind the curve. And I felt like there was some sort of a starting line for everybody. But in my own life, I just felt I would have been kind of wasting 4 years of my life going down this path that just wasn't going to be profitable for me. So this fear of well, what else do I do? This has really been my life. And so there's definitely that kind of piles on as well. So then you start to feel stuck, where you're well, I got to keep going because it's kind of all I know, but I'm also not getting the results yet. So I kind of want to give up. So it's a lot of conflicting emotions that basically start piling in, especially I think that second or third year when you're into this business, if it goes out the way that it worked for me. Some producers, knocking it out of the park the first year. You know, like the producer that I just interviewed, he got 100 placements within his first year. That was not my career. So he's already knocking it out of the park much quicker than I am. So maybe he's not going to deal with that. But for most people, you probably will have a slower start, and that's okay, and that's normal. But I want to make sure you guys are aware of that. And then the last part is about wanting to not look like a fool in front of my friends and family, because I had been such a big cheerleader of sync licensing. I'd been telling them how excited I was. And to know that maybe 4 or 5 years into it, I realized, well, I don't want to do this, and I bow out. And then I felt like that would have been me sort of like admitting that it was a pipe dream, that I was just following sort of the latest passion project, the latest hobby I had. And I took it way too seriously. I devoted way too much time to it. And it was just a big waste. And I would have felt like a fool and just, you know, really embarrassed, basically, that it was something that I had really given my heart to, but didn't see it work out. So of course, the fear of failure, the fear of embarrassment from my friends and family and colleagues and musicians and bandmates and all that kind of stuff. So those are all real, guys. I felt those, and I know that many other producers go through that kind of stuff. But Mike, we have you first on screen here, man. So maybe in your career, in the beginning, did you ever deal with this where you were worried that like maybe this would be a huge waste of time for your life?
So I had a kind of a different start. So first off, like I didn't really start with you know, getting chasing after royalties or, you know, doing stuff that would generate royalties. I got my start basically hustling at music houses, interning and all that kind of stuff in order to get towards, you know, writing custom music for commercials. And, you know, when that started to happen, that was cool. But then like when the royalties ever came in, that was always considered like an extra thing for me. So for me, it was always about the mindset of like getting jobs. And at the time when I started, you know, I was young. So it was, I was still like in college, like 18, 19 years old. So at that time I was still like, you know, really hustling, and it didn't really matter. I kind of didn't know how long it would take. For real, like until like a few years later. But I would say like the first time that really kind of hit me is like whenever I turned like 24, 25, that's when I started to see like other composers or other people around me that I was kind of running with be either ultra successful in the sense of like being able to start their own houses or, or just like landing job after job, and I felt like I was still like kind of hustling, trying to get like my foot in the door. And at that point, that's whenever I start to, really think about like, okay, again, yeah, those thoughts come to my mind. It's like, okay, maybe my music isn't good enough. Maybe this isn't what I should be doing. Maybe I should just be producing records. Maybe that's more my thing and not necessarily doing commercials or whatever the thing is. But the difference was what kind of kept me going was the fact that I always somehow opportunities still, fell on my lap. So whether I, hustled enough to get myself in that position or, just luck had it, where things would just kind of come my way. And that's over time, that's kind of what I looked at, and I was more about just the opportunities. The wins, being in commercials and custom music for commercials for a long time, like, you kind of realize pretty quickly that you're not going to win a lot of those jobs, like it's just the nature of it. There's a lot of different people pitching, a lot of different companies pitching. There's so many things that can happen for you to get that win as a composer. So that's when I started to look at it as like, okay, well, if the opportunities are coming, then that means I'm still kind of in the game. And when those stop, then that's when I have to worry. So another point when I felt like things did kind of stop a little bit was there was like the big economic crash around 2008, 2009. It kind of hit the advertising business, I think around 2009, and custom music really took a dive. And that was when like budgets like kind of sank. And that was also at the same time when library music became a lot more prominent. And so luckily, kind of an unfortunate way, like I was looking at my sort of commercial composing career as being like, I wasn't getting the opportunities at that time, but then I started seeing opportunities with libraries, or it wasn't that I was seeing the opportunities directly, but I saw library music as an opportunity to kind of pivot to. And I started making my hustle towards that. And that's kind of how it's been like for me. So anytime that I feel like, okay, well, an opportunity sort of dries up or something like that, I look at what my skill set is and see where I can go. So for instance, I've gotten into audio engineering, and if that if I have to do that for a few months or a year or whatever, then that's what I got to do. I've gotten into like music editing now, like what I've done for Netflix and all that kind of stuff. That's same sort of thing. And these are all skills that I have and things that I love to do. So it's just kind of weird, like, and I would consider myself lucky that like anytime that fear has crept up, I just take comfort in, oh wait, I've learned so many things throughout all these years that I don't necessarily need to be this beat maker, my entire career. I can do these other things, technical things as well. But even when the sense of musical styles, like just doing commercials, I've learned how to do other styles and stuff like too that I can incorporate. And that's just what I take comfort in. And yeah, it's tough if you, kind of have to live. But like for me, I tried my best to separate that need for, music to make my living, like that make or break kind of thing, like taking that pressure off so that it's kind of just like, if I got to get another job at some point, in my life to live, that's what I got to do, and it's helped me to accept that, like, making music and being involved in music and audio and all that kind of stuff, that's just, it's not really a job for me, it's a lifestyle. So I'm going to do it regardless, and the time for it to kind of succeed and happen for me in the times that it's just all going to come and go, and I just have to roll with it, just because to me, that's what I found the nature of this business kind of is.
I want to highlight two things there. And if you guys missed that, you really missed like a huge life lesson. One is that you just perceive everything as an opportunity. That is much easier said than done. But with that kind of a mentality, you're bulletproof, because there's really nothing that can demotivate you, because even if you don't get a gig, you don't get the custom opportunity, you lose a client, whatever it is, it's a learning opportunity, and you have other skills you can go to, and you just figure that that's a chance for you to adapt, or get some good feedback on what you maybe could have done better next time. So with that kind of mindset of just looking for the opportunities, you really can't lose. And so that's a really great antidote to this fear of wasting your time, right? But the bigger thing I think you just touched on, sort of, I don't think you realize how big that concept that is, where you basically are like letting go of the expectation that music is going to be your full-time income, or doing specifically custom work or whatever it is that you originally were thinking about doing, kind of letting go of that and just saying, I'm here to serve. I'm here to make an impact. I'm here to do what I'm going to do anyways. And as long as the opportunities are coming, and as long as I can still fulfill a need, I'll do whatever I got to do to keep marching down this path. And I'm going to kind of take this wherever it takes me, wherever the opportunity takes me, wherever this kind of adventure in my career takes me. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to be open-minded to, I can do this, I can do that. I can do things that I probably in the beginning didn't have a plan that I was going to be doing. But when and I've talked about that a little bit, but it is this kind of cool, like Zen mindset thing that where you sort of rise above the expectations of, I need to make full-time income, and I got to do it in 2 years, and I got to, you put that pressure on yourself. It's almost guaranteed to backfire on you, because you're going to be unnecessarily like not enjoying the process, because anytime you get a little bit of a pushback or a disappointing royalty check, you're like, that took me off my path, and now I'm not going to be successful. And then that puts you into a whirlwind of not being motivated, and it really starts falling apart. So letting go of the expectations and just being, a hard worker, ready to serve, ready to learn, ready to see things as opportunities. The side effect will be the income. Like, it's just sort of a side effect of having that right mentality, Mike. So thank you for sharing that, man. That's some really, really deep stuff there. And it's very impressive that you've come up with that and you have that implemented into your life. And it's just so, I'm sure, automatic now that you don't even think about it. It's just what you do. You've made it kind of a habit to have that mindset. So that's awesome, dude. Trevor, how about you, man? I'm sure you've had those thoughts where you thought, man, I've wasted my life, or maybe I'm going to waste my life in this business.
Yeah, so it's funny because Mike basically told the story of the idea that I was going to bring up. Like, his is a life story of the concept that I was going to talk about, which applies to sync licensing, but I think is really starting to apply to the new economy that we're about to see, because I just to kind of step away from sync licensing for a second, I think that we are seeing this strange transition from, I work at this company for 30 years and then retire, to I live a life where I earn money in various different ways, right? And whether, whatever the things are that you do in your life. And I think that that's changing, and it's a mindset that needs to kind of change. You got to kind of change that mindset in sync licensing in general. Like, you have plenty of videos trying to explain to people, like, look, you're going to do a lot of work and not make any money right away, which is weird if you're thinking about jobs, right? If you're thinking about a job and you're just like, well, I worked at McDonald's for like a week and I should get my money. Where is it? Like that, it's a weird thing to wrap your head around. But looking forward, it's actually a really cool thing to be able to almost have like this endless like roadways, like splits in the road in front of you that you get to kind of navigate on your own. And and one of the ways that I've found that is the best way to kind of retrain your brain is to look at your past and think about those things that during your past you were like, this was a waste of time, or this was bad, or this was not good, or whatever, and think about what that led you to, like what that event led you to, which is usually a better thing, even if it didn't feel like it in the moment. And think, okay, now that today is today, what are these things that are happening to me that will lead me down a better path? So now I'll use some examples. In sync licensing, there are tons of things you can do. You don't need to just make beats or make tracks. That's a good path. It's especially if you're good at it and you can make royalties. But I mean, there's music supervisors. Like maybe you're not that great at making the music, but man, do you know how to implement it, right? But you don't realize that until a couple of years in. But now you have this like composer knowledge, and now you're like, well, I've done a little bit of work in music supervision, and you're actually really good at that. You didn't waste time in the composer world. Now you've actually amplified your understanding of that bridge between composer and supervisor. And that's one example. Like there's plenty of different ways where you get to kind of snake your way through this industry and really like make it your own. And what you want to do. Like I was a composer for a long time, and I really like started really understanding and liking business and stuff, and created my own library instead. And now I don't make any music. And I'm totally, I like that in a lot, and in so many different ways. And I think that if you kind of have that approach of trying to understand yourself and go through like the time, like, so let's say in a year, you start like January 1st on, the end of the year, you look at the past year and you go, okay, what did my journey look like and where am I now? Now, if you spent an entire year just making beats over and over and over again and sending emails out over and over and over again and got nowhere, learn from that and figure out what the next year should look like for you, because you're doing that. What is it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. Look back at what did work. Like if you did that all year and there were some positives, but mostly negatives, figure out how to now have more of those positives this next time around and go down that road, and so on and so forth. And where it leads you, it's almost kind of like it doesn't matter as long as it's leading you somewhere, and you're improving every single time. Like whatever it is, maybe you told your friends and family that you were going to be a film composer 2 years ago, but now you're doing all this other stuff. But it's still like you're still in what you wanted to do, and you kind of guided yourself there anyway. As long as you're being self-aware and enjoy and are happy in what you're doing, you're guiding yourself into this this new thing that you didn't maybe plan on 2 years ago or whatever. So anyway, so all that said, it's essentially like figure out the journey, and then also understand that you don't need to basically like dedicate like, okay, I'm going to be a blank and then do that for 10 years. Like you really can navigate yourself into a nice pocket that is actually comfortable, because then you're getting rid of the stuff you didn't like and keeping the stuff you did, and then building your future as you go. So
awesome, man. You cut out a little bit at the end there. Hopefully, did we lose you? I think we might have lost you. Hold on, let's see if we can restart this. There you go.
I see you guys. Everything.
Yeah, there you go. Looks like you're good now, man. No, thank you, man. One thing I really want to really emphasize that what you said is knowing that nothing you do in this industry is going to be a waste of time. Like you said, like even if you spend the full year making tracks, submitting them, not getting it done, it's still going to be something that you can look back on. Like you said, you can reflect on it. You can try to figure out, well, if I put that much effort into this and it's not working out, obviously it's probably something I'm doing that's not right. And so if you have that humility to realize like you can go back and change it, and start making those adjustments, then how is that a waste of time? What you've done is you've gotten more self-aware and you've gotten better, and now you can actually take a step to do something a little different than you did before. And maybe that first step forward isn't the right one, but at least it's not the same thing you've been doing. And I see that from a lot of producers and musicians for their careers, is they just do the same thing year after year after year after year, and they don't get anywhere. And then the years turn into decades, and then the decades turn into bitterness. And the bitterness starts to sound like people that are just mad at people, and they're mad at the industry, and they think that nobody gave them a shot, life wasn't fair and all that kind of stuff. And they're just a bummer to be around. I don't like being around people that do that. They just kind of like tear you down a little bit. They don't, I don't know. It's just not fun to talk to people that are playing the victim on everything in life. It's more enjoyable to be around people that have been empowered and taken responsibility for their careers. So that's why sync licensing, I think, especially in the way that I think that we teach it, how I teach it, you can't lose. You really can't lose. Even if you spend 10 years in this business and make nothing, you really can't lose, because I have a list of things that you're basically going to get. And these are skills, life skills and accomplishments that you will take with you and become not only a better professional, but a better human being. Your relationships will benefit, your work will benefit, like everything in your life will start to benefit because of what you've got here and what you're doing with sync licensing. And I'm not just exaggerating that, I literally mean this, okay? So number one, and I'm gonna say this word correctly, perseverance, because one of you kind subscribers has been telling me that I call it perseverance, and I didn't realize actually my entire life that it actually is pronounced perseverance. So we've got perseverance, which is absolutely a key to succeeding, obviously, in sync licensing. But that is just one of those things that if you don't have that, nothing's going to work out for you. And you guys all know that listening to this, that if you're not able to get a plan, stick to the goal, figure out a way to get to that end. And when you feel demotivated, you feel that lack of encouragement, you feel like, I don't know if this is going to work out for me. If you're not able to just keep pushing through, or take a break for a day if you need to, and then get back on the horse and go to that, if you can't persevere, nothing in life is really going to work out that well for you. It's going to be just, a failure after a failure, and a missed goal after missed goal. And then again, that bitterness and that sort of feeling that the world's not giving you a shot starts to creep in. So you have to have perseverance in this business. So that's definitely one thing that you can take with you no matter how long you stay in this business, and no matter what your success rate is, just to be able to continuously log in, go to your studio and crank out high quality tracks and continuously improve upon your productions. You can't really lose with that, okay? Second, which is very related to that, is setting and achieving goals, which is what we do with the Sync 60 Challenge. Just being able to say, hey, I have a goal. I want to get it done in 60 days. Let me go to map it out week by week, and then let's get it done. Do you know how few people are able to do that? Like, that's a small, minute number of human beings that are able to even do that. Very simple task, because it's easy to think about, easy to conceptualize. Talk to me on day 59 and let me know how you're doing, because most producers, and I'm not saying this out of theory, we do this in Sync Academy, and I see how many sign up and I see how many finish. It's a small number of people that finish compared to how many people got it really excited on day one. So if you can start to learn how to do that, that's another thing that's going to carry you through life no matter what you decide to do, whether you continue with sync licensing or go become a contractor and go do real estate. It doesn't matter. That ability to have this goal that's a long period of time from into the future and be able to achieve it, like gold. You're going to have so much. You're going to have so much of an edge on the competition in whatever you do. Like, that's just such an powerful thing. You will be improving communication skills. So if you don't know how to write effective emails, you don't know how to get on the phone and talk to people in a professional way, you will. And this industry will either kick you out if you're not able to start learning that really quickly. How to be very clear. Also, how to take constructive criticism. So how to kind of like mute your ego when you don't need it, when it's not going to be a useful ally for you. When somebody says that you need to change your music and you go, oh, I really like that song, I don't want to change it. But being able to have that ability to just calm and kind of stroke the ego a little bit and say, it's okay. This is for a job. This is for professionalism. This is for me being able to serve somebody's needs. That's a huge thing also that you get to take with you. Of course, the next thing, just taking risks. Like, getting into sync licensing is a risk. And a lot of people don't do it because it's a risk and it's scary. And I don't know if it's going to work out. So for you to just jump into this and give it a shot and be fully informed, and also actually not be fully informed, take a stab even when you're not fully informed and actually just go for it. Thank you. Zoom gave me a gift in the middle of our chat and interrupted it. So that was awesome, Zoom. I appreciate that. just being able to, I don't think you guys saw that. I think I saw it on my end. Just being able to jump into something, knowing I'm going to figure this out as we go. I don't really have all the answers. I'm just going to jump into the river, and I know I can swim a little bit, and then eventually I'll figure out how to put a raft together and I'll be okay. That is huge. That is a really big thing because, again, most people don't want to do that because it's scary. They'd rather stay with their comfort zone, stay with a day job, stay with a thing that's been paying the bills, and not really go out on a limb and give something a shot. So, having this sort of history now that you are able to take a risk and go into something brand new, it's a really, really great thing to have. And last but not least, of course, is acquiring the service mindset. And that's one thing that I have harped on so many times in so many videos and so many podcasts, to be able to get out of your own way and realize that if you want to be wealthy, you want to be successful, you want to be needed by people, be helpful, be useful, be of service to other people. This is basically a millionaire's prerequisite. So if you want to become a millionaire, and you're not going to be useful for other people, I wish you all the best. It's probably not going to work out. You have to make other people's lives better in order to have them pay you for your service or your talents or whatever it is you're going to give to them. So, what's really powerful about this, because I know that, artists and producers really struggle with this because we can be so egocentric and so narcissistic in terms of check me out, listen to my music, right? But when you're in sync licensing, it's really about what does the library want, and ultimately what does the client want. We actually want to go further than that to say, what is this client really looking for their TV show, and how can I really be helpful with my skills and talents and gifts for them? The more that you can make that direct connection and directly make their lives better and easier, the more money, the more contacts, the more quote unquote luck you'll find in your life. Guaranteed that. That's a 1-to-1 ratio. The more you serve people, the more you're going to get back from everything that you put out there. Okay. So you obviously are going to require that in sync licensing. So with that list, is there any reason not to give it a shot? Right. That's kind of what I would, challenge everybody listening to this. If you're worried, well, I don't know if I want to spend a couple of years. If I told you going to like a college for a couple of years could give you all of these skills, would you go to that college? I would think so, especially if it's not going to be costing you that much to go do it. Maybe just a lot of your time, of course. But these are some skills that you don't learn in school. I guarantee you public school is not teaching you guys any of this stuff. They didn't teach me this. They didn't teach anybody this kind of stuff. If you had some great forward-thinking parents, hopefully, or entrepreneurial parents, maybe they gave you a little bit of stuff, but most of us probably didn't. Just had sort of like, parents that had the day job and told you like, go to college and get a job. That's kind of what we were told, right? So we usually are not taught this kind of stuff. So this is sort of the education, the university, that you get to have all these skills directly injected into your life, and you will carry them with you forever until you're in the grave. So it's a really, really great thing. So I hope that kind of gives you guys another maybe a balancing point in terms of it's not all about the fear, but there's a lot of benefits as well, and that could be something useful for you. So Mike, do you have some maybe further thoughts that you can share on that?
Yeah. So one thing I want to say first off is one thing that's really helped me and reminding myself is that making music, being involved in music, being involved in audio is, it's a passion. It's something that's fun for me to do. It's something that like I said before, it's a lifestyle. It's not really, I don't see it as a job. It's something that's like, it defines kind of who I am a little bit in the sense of like, if I didn't, I don't really know what I'd be doing if I didn't do this. So that said, I try to tell myself like, hey, this is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be cool. Like this is supposed to drive me. And with that, like I try not to, try to manage the amount of pressure that I'm putting on this one thing to kind of, to kind of make my living, let's say, and help my family and all that kind of stuff and pay all the bills and stuff like that. That is kind of a lot of pressure if you think about it. And especially when, for me, I kind of think of music as like, let's face it, there's a lot of easier ways in the world to make money. It's not easy to make money in music, especially in entertainment and everything like that, but that's not the reason why we do it. We do it because we love it. And also it's like really pat yourself on the back if you are making a living doing it, because not very many people can. It's not, again, it's just not an easy thing to do. It's not something that's like, okay, it's the path is set out where you can go to college, maybe go to graduate school, get a degree, get a master's, and all of a sudden you have like an internship, a job, everything like that laid out for your careers, laid out for you. 35 years later, you get to retire, with like money in the bank and your family all taken care of. I was in the game for 12 years when a lot of things changed and when I actually had to get a day job, and it was one of those decisions I had to make where it's just like, well, yeah, I was making a living making music, but then it's kind of like, well, it's, a lot of things have changed, so I need to do what I need to do to survive. And I also have to manage my own stress and everything like that too. So getting a day job made sense at the time. I got a day job in a related industry. It was in post-production, but it wasn't doing any kind of audio or anything like that. I was delivering files to Hulu, Netflix, all of that kind of stuff. But I later realized that it taught me a lot of skills that I'm able to bring back into what I'm doing with my music and everything like that too. Just in the sense of like, now I have a good idea of how the post-production process works, in the sense of, how shows and are finished, how the files are prepared, how the metadata is prepared before they hit Netflix, before, and how that all works, how, deliveries can be prepared better, so that, and also organization, when I was dealing with thousands and thousands of files or assets, that I had to manage, that helped me as far as managing my own sample library, managing my own tracks and workflows and stuff like that too. So there's always benefits, and then at the same time that paid my rent, and that paid my rent in a way where it didn't stress me out too much, where I still had energy and to put into my passion, which is music, so I just think that, like, and I've said this in other episodes too, where it's just like, just kind of forgive yourself, be easy with yourself. This is supposed to be fun, this is supposed to be cool. If you're just like always really hard on yourself, and I know a lot of us can be, especially if there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and if you get that down, it's just like, yeah, maybe this isn't for me, just take a step back, and just kind of be easy on yourself and think like, hey, wait, this is fun, and the fact that I made some money in this, or I'm about to, or have an opportunity to, is like, that's already special in and of itself, like, because this is not something that's easy to do, and it's not something that everybody in the world can do. And to your point where you said about like dealing with friends and family, that's a great example of how like this is not something that everybody can do, because you're going to have a lot of people who don't do it's the people who don't do this are the people who are going to tell you like, hey, this is not a good idea, right, for you. So it's, if you notice, it's always those kinds of people. So and I think that also leads to another thing, which I think is important. It even happened to me too. Finding a community, finding some like-minded people, if it's small, through meetup groups or just friends that or even something like the Sync Academy. I found the Sync Academy and it helped me. I was able to come in and help, kind of teach you guys skills and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, what it did for me is like, we're very isolated in this business, so we have a lot of time to our thoughts. We have a lot of time to our fears, but like, when you start to have a community and other people to talk to, it really helps. And it really just, so, kudos to Jesse, like for building this, because there really hasn't been anything like this before. And I've been in this for like 15, 20 years before joining the Academy. And and it's really a huge help. And I think for, everybody at all levels to really have other people to kind of talk to and be able to bounce ideas with and stuff like that. So it's really important. So.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. And that's one of the big reasons why Sync Academy was born, is just exactly what you said. It's so isolating to be in this business. And I like how you put that, where we do have a lot of time to spend with our fears. I like how you said that, and a lot of time with our uncertainties and our doubts. But when you can reach out to other people, you can kind of lessen the burden on yourself. You share with everybody else and the load gets a little bit lighter, right? So that's exactly why, Sync Academy has been such a powerful thing for so many producers, myself obviously included, just to see just this thriving kind of community, this really cool culture of people staying positive, staying motivated, being real when they don't feel like making music, when they're not feeling motivated, but then seeing so many other members trying to pick them up and go like, hey man, it's all right, go easy on yourself. We need that from time to time. We need to just kind of, like you said, take it easy on ourselves and take it easy on each other. But it's really tricky, because my big burnout moment years ago was that feeling of I'm isolated. I didn't have a community. I didn't have even doing this weekly would have been really helpful for me, just to have a once a week check-in with other producers, even if we didn't do it for a podcast or a YouTube channel, but just to talk to other people about what's going on in their world, what's going on in my world. It just makes a big difference, man. Because we take it for granted. It's such a great thing to be able to do what you love for a living, but then you also realize, man, that day job, I used to hang out with people. Even though I hated the day job, there were the people there, right? And so it's like, there's always this pro and con to both sides. So what we're trying to do with Sync Academy is obviously introduce a little bit as much as we can, the people, the kind of cooler talk, the sort of hanging out with people, in between your tracks so that you can actually feel inspired and all that good stuff. So thanks, Mike. I appreciate that, man. How about you, Trevor? Solution stuff that we can kind of get through this fear that'll help us out.
Yeah. I'll try to keep this one short because I think really it comes down to just like looking at everything as nothing as a negative, even negatives being negative. So like if you feel like you've wasted time doing one thing, or you forced yourself to work on a track for 2 days straight, even though you knew it wasn't going to turn out good, looking at, or the other side of like this track took you 10 minutes and it's the best one you've made ever, looking at all of that and really dissecting and learning from it. And that way it isn't wasted. Even if you think, like, oh, I wasted 2 days, like, yeah, in a way you did, but really you can also learn from that and not do that again, or try it a different way next time so you don't just do it twice, and really just make sure that you have that mindset of like, nothing is a waste. And I can always learn and adapt from, my recent past to my recent future. And I think if you do that, it'll be really hard to justify that everything was for nothing kind of like a idea in your head, because you have all of these definitions for everything that happened to you. Like, if you use the year example of like, all of last year, your failures led to this new thing, and your successes led to more of your successes, and kind of thinking of it that way, then it just doesn't feel like you did nothing. Even if you didn't make any money, or you made little money or whatever, there's so much more of it involved than just the money.
Absolutely. I can't emphasize that and agree with that more, that nothing is a waste. That's the biggest thing that I think that most people are worried about, is that, like, what if this is all just a waste? And it's like, I mean, I look back at myself, like, kind of feeling sorry for myself that I had that point of view. But, what are you going to do? It is what I felt at the time. But if you could look back now and just say, like, man, like, none of that's going to be a waste. Like, you're going to feel disappointed. Like, you're going to feel this, you're going to feel that, you're going to feel excited, you're going to feel like you're about to take over the business. Then you're going to feel like you don't belong in the business. You're going to have all these back and forth emotions, but none of it's going to be a waste. It's all going to be skills and concepts and information and knowledge that you can carry with you, and skills, life skills, really, that you can carry with you into, the next chapter of your life. I can tell you, I had many friends when I was in my, I guess I got started when I was 23 or so. I had many friends that were like, Jesse, let's go travel. Like, let's go to South America. Let's go to Europe. Let's go do this stuff. And I was like, I was a little bit, felt bad. I was like, sorry guys, like, I kind of want to work. Like, I just want to sit in my room and I want to make music and I want to kind of get into this licensing thing. And they were like, okay, man, well, if you don't travel in your 20s, like, that's pretty much it. You're done. And so I did have that fear of like, well, there's another fear. Great. Now I'm wasting the prime of my life and I'm sitting here playing with Logic Pro while they're out, having the time of their life in Brazil. Like, this sucks, right? And now I realize that, like, no, like, the choice that I made to really get my career started when I got started and to really dive in and make that sacrifice is going to allow me to actually have more free time now, right? So that I'm not locked into a day job where another person gets to dictate when I can go on a trip, when I can go to, South America or Europe or whenever we can travel again. Now I have the ability, because of Sync licensing, to be able to be independently mobile. As long as I have an internet connection, I can do this from anywhere. So you just have more freedom actually as time goes on. And even if it wasn't Sync licensing that you got your income and your success through, you can take that sort of sacrifice and that hard work and perseverance that you really dove into and bring it into whatever business you get into later or whatever you try to do. So I can't say good enough things about the Sync licensing business. I know that there are dark parts of it. There are parts that are tough. There are sort of some sharks out there. There are people that take advantage of other people. There's unethical stuff. I mean, that's just welcome to planet Earth. That's all over the place. But I have to say, from what it's taught me, I wouldn't trade 1 second of it. For even the disappointing, especially the disappointing royalty checks, especially the times when I felt like I was getting rejected and getting fired from projects, right? I especially appreciate those things because that's what humbles you. That's what gets you to improve. Those are the moments where you really get to grow. So I hope in this discussion you guys have listened and heard something encouraging to basically hang in there, keep going for it, and realize that none of this is a waste at all. So with that being said, we're going to wrap up this week's podcast. We might try something interesting next week where we bring on either Syndicate or Sync Academy members and talk to you guys if you're in the Syndicate or in Sync Academy, and really hear your stories personally. Don't think we'll use Zoom again. This has been a really not so great experience. Zoom has had a lot of problems. So we'll probably go back to our Google Hangouts. But be on the lookout if you guys are on Sync Academy or in the Syndicate. I'll put out a link and some announcements about that. And then Trevor, Mike, and myself will, hopefully all three of us, we can get together and we just want to hear from you, really. I mean, we won't probably give too much advice during the sessions. We just kind of want to hear where you guys are, what's going on in your careers, what fears you're facing, maybe how the last 4 or 5 episodes of this podcast have maybe helped you. Maybe we missed some big fears that, maybe you can help us out and just say, hey, you guys missed out on this big thing that I'm dealing with. So this is going to be your guys' opportunity to really connect with us and let us know what your story is, because we're going to be using these conversations to shape a whole new library of tutorials that we're going to be releasing in Sync Academy in the coming months. So that's what this is really all about, is diving, into the psychological, the emotional, the sort of under the surface stuff that is not technically based. It has nothing to do with your DAW. It's really more about what's going on between your ears in terms of our psychology. It's really, really important stuff. And it does make pretty much most of the difference in most people's careers. So stay tuned and enjoy. We hope to see you guys next week. And until then, keep up the productivity. We'll talk soon.